I was listening to radio and watching my dad perform and singing a little here and there from things I heard on the radio. I started feeling that I was attracted to this medium or this business, the record business, and singing and performing. My father was a vocalist too in the big band era. He was a crooner though. Oddly enough, I was, still am kind of a tenor. But I sort of changed a bit of it on my last album. I've gone down a little bit, but he was a heavy crooner. Tenor might describe the range I have in the group Journey, but I have a different style when I'm not in that group because when you're in a certain situation, it brings out of you certain things, and being in that combination of musicians brings out a certain kind of vocal style. Steve Perry right now is what's on that Street Talk album. It is definitely not an audio movie. It wasn't assembled like a voiceover films and all that. It was really put together with an honest approach, and it really is me right now.
Steve Perry. He's best known as the lead singer and one of the chief songwriters for Journey, the band that's recorded 7 platinum albums, are always a sellout when they're on tour, and just last year was named most popular group in America in a national Gallup poll. Journey is blessed with so much talent that various members are able to branch out with solo projects without endangering their supergroup status. Steve Perry has just released his first solo album. He calls it Street Talk.
Street Talk was a name of a band that actually broke up just before Journey. It was causing so much talk on the streets. Everybody wanted to sign it. And so we thought we'd call ourselves Street Talker for a while. And because the band never got going, I just thought I would use that because I just thought that the talk on the streets on this album was already out, that I was going to do one. And they were already going, gosh, I hear it's great. And I hadn't even started it yet, okay?
Steve Perry had recorded one great song outside of Journey before releasing his debut in the solo album department. Don't Fight It was a song Steve Perry co-wrote and recorded with Kenny Loggins, and it was in the top 5 during the fall of 1982. The very first song released from Steve Perry's Street Talk album seems destined for the same top-of-the-chart status. It's called Oh Sherry, and its namesake is a very special friend of Steve Perry's.
Well, Sherry and I have been together for 5 years, and this song is basically kind of, it isn't our entire relationship, but it's like everybody's relationship, I think. There's good, there's bad, it's up, it's down, and that's truthful. I like that song an awful lot personally because I think it's an interesting song.
Coming up on the Hot Ones, Steve Perry's Lights Shine on L.A. Make that the Bay.
The Top FM 106.
Infinity. That was the title of the first Journey album featuring Steve Perry in a lead singer role. Before that, he was in a group called The Alien Project.
It was an incredible band. It really was a very, very good band. And CBS wanted to sign it, and so did Chrysalis. And unfortunately, the bass player, Richard Michaels, who I've dedicated the album to, got fatally injured in a 4th of July statistic on the Ventura Freeway. It was a blow to my drive, my heart, my whole enthusiasm. It was a real blow. In fact, I was ready to sell shoes at that point. Anything. I kind of was just disenchanted with the whole thing.
Some good did come from this tragedy. The members of Journey heard a tape of the Alien Project and liked Steve Perry's voice so much they wanted to sign him on.
I needed a job real bad. Boy, I was ready. I said, you bet. What are they going to do? What kind of music do they want to do? Because they, at that point in time prior to me joining them, were a synergy instrumental fusion type group they were high energy. They definitely were, though. But they weren't too vocal oriented, and they were making a change, which was a step to the Infinity album, which was going to be more song oriented material. And they grabbed me, and that was the beginning of 7 years now, almost 7 years to this point right now of being in the group Journey.
From the Infinity album came a hit song Steve Perry had started writing long before he ever thought of fronting Journey. In fact, Lights was an idea first for a commercial. And in its finished Journey-ized state, it did end up on the radio, but not in the Mr. Whipple or Mrs. Olsen category. It was on the music charts in the fall of 1978.
I was living in Los Angeles about 1978, I think it was. And I wasn't quite sure if I should do a commercial type thing and get into commercials. I was trying to get in any facet of the business to open that door to the record business. And I thought, well, God, I can come up many ways here. I can go into radio and all that. And I actually did one commercial, which I won't tell anybody about. I actually did 2 commercials, but I won't tell nobody. I changed my voice, mimic somebody. And I thought, well, wow, this would be a good idea. Maybe I should start writing commercials because they're so easy to me to write hook lines. And first thing I thought was to write something for a 5 o'clock news thing. And it was going to be, when the lights go down in the city and the sun shines on L.A., and that was going to be it, a news thing. I thought maybe I could, sell this, and I was going to finish it. And that's as far as it got. In between all this time, it didn't work out. And I joined Journey, so I changed L.A. to the Bay and finished the song. And that's a true story. It never really fit L.A., but it really came into its own. Once I got into San Francisco and the band really sort of like finished itself.
Steve Perry credits his father, who was also a singer, for both his interest in singing and a fascination with the radio.
I remember I got my first crystal set radio he made for me as a kid. Of course, now, wait a minute, there were transistor radios back then. Don't think that it's that far back, sports fans. He made it for me as a project one day, just for fun, because something I could listen to with the earpiece, and he ran a little wire out there. It's something for me to get interested in radios and see how they work.
Steve Perry grew up listening to music on his homemade radio, all kinds of music. His hometown is Hanford, California, and since it's located about in the middle of the state, he was influenced by both the Southern California surf sound and the Northern California acid rock sound. Everything from the Beach Boys to Jimi Hendrix. Not to mention a little folk music.
I got my first set of bongos when I was 8 years old, and my mother, I'll never forget it, my mother bought them for me for my birthday, and they were green sparkle bongos by Pearl, and they were beautiful, and I used to play them all the time to the Kingston Trio. Hang Down Your Head, Tom Dooley, that was bad.
Those bongos soon grew into an entire drum kit.
And then the next thing I got was a drum set, one of the first Pearl sets ever made. And so I was a drummer for an awful long time. Until, I would say, 1973, 4, something like that, I was a drummer. And I still play drums, and I was a drummer-singer all along that way, too.
One thing Steve Perry was absolutely sure of while he was growing up was that he wanted to be involved in the music business.
I even wanted to be a DJ at one point in time because I thought if I got my third-class license, back then you had to have a test, but now I guess you don't have to do that. But I wanted to be a DJ so I could have a job that was still, once again, related to some portion of it and still keep my finger on some pulse of it. I went for my third-class license and failed. But anyway, it was too difficult.
Failure is hardly the word associated with Steve Perry today. His band Journey released an album in 1981 that was #1 on the music charts for 7 straight weeks, selling millions of copies. It was called Escape, and also featured a new keyboard player and guitarist singer in the Journey lineup, Jonathan Cain. Jonathan Cain was from a group called The Babies, and he turned out to be a perfect partner for Steve Perry in the songwriting department. The first song they wrote together went straight to the top of the music chart, just like the Escape album it was on, in the fall of 1981. It's called Who's Crying Now?
He had a keyboard part, and I sort of heard something when I was driving down the freeway from L.A. on the I-5. I heard in my head, this one love feeds a fire. I remember he moved up. San Francisco was living in this little sort of an apartment dwelling thing. The Babies had just fallen apart. It was an incredible twist of fate, the positive one, I really do believe, 100% for us. Jonathan and I wrote Who's Crying Now, one of the first songs we did.
Steve Perry explores frontiers and discovers another #1. After this on The Hot One.
FM 106.
Steve Perry. He's currently climbing the music charts with his first solo album. And as the lead singer for Journey, one of the most popular bands in the world, he's subject to a tremendous amount of pressure. Pressure to perform, to tour, to write, and produce top-notch albums. But he says he wouldn't give up being a journeyman just because of a little tension.
Day-to-day life is a pressure situation as it is, and I do the best I can to handle that. The business I'm in creates its own compounds. I wouldn't change, what I've done. I really am glad what I've accomplished. But there is an awful lot of things that come along with something that you don't know about till you get there, No matter if you're a lawyer or whatever, you study in school, but until you get in there, you start, going through your moves. There's adversities that come with every profession that you don't know about until they hit you in the face. But overall, it's a positive thing. It really is more positive than negative, or I wouldn't be here.
Escape was the title of Journey's 1981 Platinum LP, and it's also something lead singer Steve Perry says he needs to do more of.
There's more than just beat your brains away and lock yourself in a little box and record an album forever and get that studio tan that's somewhere between white and gray. I have a lot to learn about what to do with relaxing and where to do it. I mean, how to do it. I really got to tell you, it's going to be one of my major chores to try to slow the wheels down a little bit because they roll too fast, I think. Too fast.
Even if he thinks his wheels are rolling mighty quickly down the career track, Steve Perry is at least on the right track. The most recent Journey album, Frontiers, followed its predecessors into the million-selling Hall of Vinyl. And Steve Perry co-wrote a song from Frontiers that was #1 in the spring of 1983. Separate Ways, Worlds Apart.
That song is a very powerful song about a breakup situation, but in a positive way, you know. Most breakups, love relationships, when they break up, they really explode. They terminate in a very bad way. The original premise of that song was that it's better that this happened because someday love will find you, and you'll be free and you'll be happy, which obviously this situation couldn't give you.
Coming up on the Hot Ones, Steve Perry is the talk of the street. Street Talk. That's the title of Steve Perry's debut solo album. But it doesn't consist of songs he's been saving for years and years and years.
I collaborated with a lot of people on it, but it hasn't been 6 years of stashing songs. This album was written in 3 weeks. It was rehearsed in 4 days. Basics were done in 8, and overdubs were done 6 hours a day for about 3-4 weeks later. And then mixing. It was done relatively quick.
The idea behind recording his solo LP in a short period of time, says Steve Perry, was to bring out a certain amount of spontaneity, what he calls an honest approach.
When you walk into a studio, the sky's the limit. If you want to, you can make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. You really can. And then again, you can use that same medium to truly capture something that feels great to your advantage, as opposed to water it down a bit. I really didn't want to do anything like water down any of the spontaneity that my album had to offer. There's some really honest-to-goodness performance and different vocal styles that I really, really like to do.
And while we're in the honesty department, Steve Perry says even though his companion, Sherry, has the honor of being the inspiration for the first hit from his solo album, she freely admits there's another tune she likes even more than Oh, Sherry.
She's truthful. Sherry's truthful. I mean, she's not going to lie to me. She loves the song, and she's very, happy and very flattered that there's a song there. It's a real nice thing. And she does like the song, but she's being very truthful that her favorite song is Foolish Heart. I mean, she's got to be honest. What else could she do?
Foolish Heart, the song Sherry honestly thinks is the best one on Steve Perry's Street Talk LP, is a ballad about love and how difficult it is balancing emotion with reason.
It's really a head-heart conflict. Your heart always wants to do what it wants to do, and your logic says not to do. This is mainly about falling in love or not to fall back in love again. And your heart obviously wants to give it a shot, but your logic says it hurts too much and I'm not into it. So it's a head and heart conflict, but inevitably the heart always wins and you're always in a painful situation or some sort of a unpredictable situation. So it really is a head and heart conflict. The heart's winning. 10-0.
Steve Perry co-wrote all 10 songs on his solo album, and he's also responsible for co-writing many of Journey's biggest hits. To create those chart toppers, he says he needs some hustle and bustle around. No quiet, poetic, solitary corners for him.
The best thing for me to be, creatively, the condition-wise, is to be in a city, for instance, like Los Angeles, maybe a funky environment. You can't really sit in a studio environment and write songs. I don't believe in that. I don't know. It's just like the dentist office or something like that. It is definitely something when you touch it with your finger, you can feel it. It's exciting too, very exciting, that creative thing.
Steve Perry used his imagination to create an entire scenario in song on his solo album. In the tune She's Mine, the main character is a very protective spouse.
She's Mine. It's about a gentleman that's seen around his home, where his wife is home all day being a housewife. And this guy knows that this guy cruising around his house is a womanizer. And he says, I've seen you creeping around. I've seen your kind before, you know. Most womanizers like this do have sort of a gigolo spell that they can cast on women sometimes. And the man just says, look, you just better back off because this one's mine. You know, stay away from my door. I don't want to see you around here no more. I know you'd like her at your hotel, but not as long as I'm alive. You know, I'm one of those kind of, it's really, he's pretty uptight, this guy. The voice in this particular song is pretty angry. So he's telling this guy a certain message. He's poking a finger at his chest, definitely.
I Believe is a song on Steve Perry's Street Talk LP that deals with a different aspect of love. And it also represents quite another musical style.
I Believe is a positive song, real positive, about the confusing things of love. If you feel love's an illusion, you know, all the confusions. But I believe in you and me. You know, it's a real positive statement. Plus, I really went for some unique rhythms on that song that I really wanted to try.
Steve Perry believes in love and in taking chances. And taking chances is just what he sings about in a song on his Street Talk album called Running Alone.
It's a strong statement about not being afraid to go out on your own. And in light of the success or failure that you could have, you know, the old turtle gets nowhere until the neck comes out of his shell. He can't go forward, you know, he just sits there with his neck in. So you got to stick your neck out and try sometimes. And if you don't try, nothing happens. So you can't be afraid to run alone, you know. You can't be afraid to lose. You can't be afraid of being alone. Although, hey, I'm right there too. I mean, these questions come to me. I mean, who wants to be alone and who wants to fail? And in the very end, there's just visions of memories of reflection. And the children come in and you can hear them echoing down the concrete alleyway. You know, things were a lot clearer and simpler sometimes when you're younger.
Memories of a different nature are the subject of Captured by the Moment, a song from Steve Perry's solo album that takes a sentimental journey through the recent past.
That song's about a moment in time in my life, and I think a lot of people's life, where there were a lot of people that were very influential in the time we were living in and the times we're living now. They've made contributions and set things in motion that still are happening now. You know, where did he go, the man who said, I have a dream?
I have a dream. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Where have they gone, the four who sang to Let It Be? It really is a statement. It names Janice, it names Jimmy, Otis Redding, Jim Morrison. You know, one open door, he tried to set the night on fire. Jackie's alone, she lost him one November day.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
And it goes, oh, remember then, remember when, captured by the moment in the magic of a yesterday.
Steve Perry sends his love with Open Arms. After this on The Hot Ones. Steve Perry. He joined Journey just in time to act as lead singer on their third album, Infinity. And today, 7 albums later, his voice is one of Journey's trademarks. His songwriting has also added to the Journey hit list, including a tune he co-wrote with fellow band member Jonathan Cain. It's called Send Her My Love and was in the top 15 on the music charts in early 1983.
Jonathan Cain and I wrote that song in Marin County because I live in Shaver Lake, and I came to do some work on the album. I was over his house, and I guess a friend of his said he had seen somebody that he used to know. John's married, but a friend said, well, you know, one of your old girlfriends said just to say hi. So he said, well, send her my love, you know. And that's how it stuck in his mind. I guess this happened about 8 months prior to the song coming. And it was the premise of the beginning of the idea. And that was a true collaboration between the two of us.
Send Her My Love, written by Steve Perry and Jonathan Cain, was on Journey's Frontiers album. On an earlier Journey LP, Escape, Steve Perry and Jonathan Cain collaborated on another chart topper. Open Arms was #1 for 7 weeks in early 1982.
Open Arms was a song. Jonathan had the melody, he had the keyboard part. So he had that one on the back burner when he joined Journey on the Escape album. He says, well, I had this song, you know, it goes sort of like this. He started playing. I says, oh, man, that's outrageous. That's great. Let's finish it. He goes, you don't think it's too, like, you know, syrupy or something. I said, are you kidding? And we finished it. And I really do think that's a very pretty song, if I can say that, which I will. Things are going good, really great. I couldn't complain. If I did, I would be an idiot. It's really, really very, very close to what I wanted to do when I set out when I was 7 years old singing around the house, you know. I've been very fortunate, I think, very lucky to be able to do this. And I've been very fortunate to be able to do this last album, too, and finance it and be able to pull that off. Things are really, really going good for me right now. I really am pleased with it and very, very proud of what everybody's let me do and helped me do.
The Hot Ones. Presented by Chevrolet. America is on the move and Chevrolet is supplying the wheels. Chevrolet and you taking charge. And in part by Gillette Good News Razors. The Hot Ones, produced in San Francisco for RKO by Is Inc. Executive producers Joe Interante and Rob Sisko. Technical producer Ron Hummel. Associate producer C.G. Gordon. I'm Dave Roberts. The Hot Ones. Steve Perry. Copyright 1984, the RKO Radio Networks.